Guys, so another update on the red telly. I think I am pretty much done with the sand and sealer. So as you can see, it looks very matte, I believe is the word for this. Come on, buddy. It's so bright outside. There, that might be the best way to see it. And yeah, it's pretty good. Got a nice base level across the entire thing. And it's looking good. Really what the sand and sealer does is it just kind of, you know, with the sanding, as you can kind of see, it leaves little scratches. You know, maybe I could have done a better job of sanding it down perfectly neatly and nicely, but the sand and sealer kind of will help fill some of that in and give you a nice base over which you can start the color. So that would be the next process, would be the white primer color. Now I am going to hit this with just a little bit of like very fine, like I'd even just use, I think I have a thing of 1,000 grit sandpaper. And what that will do is, I don't know if I can show this, there's a spot right about here. Just to find some of the, what I'm doing is I'm looking into the, I'm trying to look so that the light is shining onto the finish. And I can see there's a little bit of buildup right about this area. But just little tiny things like that where I probably didn't quite do a good enough job of keeping everything nice and clean and even with my spraying. I probably bunched it, or I transitioned too quickly, or I got too close, something like that. So that's going to be the next process. Hit it with just a little bit of sandpaper, take off any spots that are too high, but I don't want to go deep and remove anything that I've done. I probably used, I don't know, 3/4 of this. There's not a ton left. So got to be a little cautious, but just a light sand, and then we'll start with the white primer coat. Well, after my blunder earlier today, we're going to try round 2. Kind of the blind leading the blind, but I did some research as to probably what had happened, and I do think it was temperature related. Maybe I should sound this down a little bit better, but it's pretty smooth. I managed to knock down most of what's going on, and my hope is that, I mean, I'm going to need to cover it anyways, and I'm probably going to need to sand it anyways, so I might as well build the coats on top of it. But I got the, you know, this looks a little bit powdery, but it's smooth. I just touched it up with a little bit of 400 grit sandpaper. I didn't want to go too deep though and get into the coat underneath. So we're going to try it again, and I'm going to shoot inside this time. I got this sheet set up. I'll probably set up some cardboard as well and give it another go. So made a little bit more progress. I actually got what I think a primer coat should look like. I gotta say, it's really nice. You can still see some of the streaking, and I actually did get a little bit of misty stuff on there, which is a whoops, but it is what it is. But this was a little bit easier and better than the sand and sealer. That was, part of it was you just have a harder time seeing exactly what you're doing, but with this primer coat, when you actually are seeing exactly the white paint against the red background, top looks nice. The back wasn't the best. The biggest things that I was running into was, you know, starting off, turning it on, and then evenly finding the right speed with which, and also the right distance. Kind of takes a little bit of experimentation. So yeah, we just are gonna kind of do our best. Gonna need to probably sand that down a little bit. But I'm gonna let it dry for a little bit and then come back, hit it again. The idea is that I want the red to go away. I want it to be perfectly white. Then we can start with the color coats. So we will do that. Another update on the primer. This has been a kind of a challenging stage for me, but I'm learning and we're getting there. So it actually looks pretty darn good. But there are these little spots right here. I believe that what's happening is so the way I've been shooting is I kind of do the front and the back and then the sides last. And I think what's happening is when I'm doing the sides like this, somehow I'm not doing it quite right, and so it's getting these little spits. Just seem to be on the back though. Because if I flip it over, sorry about this, guys. I don't see them on the front. Front actually looks really good. A couple of little dings, but this body was not brand new, so that's fine. So anyways, it looks really good. But yeah, I've learned a ton, and actually what I did is I set up a little spray room. We have this little tiny, we call it the dungeon room. It's this little teeny tiny room in the corner of our basement that's meant for it to be like a tornado shelter. It's like totally concreted in. It has this heavy door. And there's no ventilation in there, but there is a window. So I actually kept the window open, and then I'm probably just going to do the rest of the spraying in that little room. It actually works really, really nicely, because then I can keep the temperature relatively higher, but then I don't have to deal with the crazy cold outside problem. So anyways, with this back, it would probably really... One of my goals is to be more patient. I think if an earlier me would have just said heck with it and moved forward, but I think I'm going to try sanding those guys down just very lightly and doing maybe one more cover, and I might just do the back and not the front or the sides, because honestly they look pretty good to me. And so I got a little bit of primer left, so let's go ahead and use it. So I have officially started on the color coats. Let's get this out into better light. Sorry. Okay. So we have officially put our first coat of Seafoam green on. Yeah, it's going pretty well, I think. Looks pretty good so far. To recap, the sanding sealer was fine. The white base coat was actually a bit of a struggle. You can see there's a dark line right there, and that was because the tips, they have a little notch, so you can have it so it sprays horizontally or vertically, and I got it wrong my first time around. So that will probably need to be sanded out. I'm kind of hoping I could just kind of keep going though. But man, it already looks pretty good. I think I did about 4.5 total coats of white primer, and that was because on the back I was getting some weird spitty stuff going on, so I had to do an extra half coat just on the back. But yeah, it's going well. My technique is getting better even just from when I started. Again, the key is to find the right distance and speed with which so if I'm holding the spray can, you start off the body and then you come across and then lift, spray, lift. So it's all about finding the right distance, and so if you go real slow and you're too close, it's going to be too wet. But if you're too far back, then it's going to dry before it even hits the body. I mean, so you got to find just that right balance of distance and speed. So yeah, I think it's going pretty well. Okay guys, so a little update on the finish process and how things have been going for me. So I think I'm about 3 coats into this color coat process, and yeah, it's been going really well. A couple of just little quick tips that have been helping me. One is to start with the areas that are most difficult first. So for me, that's kind of in here, and just kind of, especially because when I hold it, I'm using this as a base, so getting this side is difficult, just because it prevents a little bit of a stretch. So start with the areas that are most difficult, because then you can be a little creative with how you hold the body. Second is I did a couple where I forgot to bring the hot cup of water, and that actually was causing some spitting. And so I brought the hot cup of water back, and that completely went away. This last coat that I just did with the hot cup of water really, really helped keep it nice and smooth and clear. And yeah, it's turning out really nicely. I'm excited to see how it ends up. So I have officially quit with the color coats, and I have moved on to the clear coats. Yeah, so feel pretty good about that. I think I did 4.5 total color coats. It was not 100% perfect. There is a little guy right here, but some of it is just, there's a little guy right here, and then actually on the front there was a line that kind of was hard to get out, but overall I felt pretty good about it, and I wasn't going for perfect. I mean, this body already had some nicks on it already, and so I think that's okay. I'm not necessarily going for like glassy smooth, but I think it looks nice so far. Really excited about how it's going. Let's flip it over to the front. So yeah, I've kind of got into a much better rhythm as far as my like spraying technique and all that jazz. Yeah, it's starting to look really nice. Getting the bottle heated up with warm water helps immensely to avoid sticky stuff. There's some orange peel. This was, I also have done my first layer of clear coat. You can see here where it kind of gets smeared a little, but like I said, it's fine. Overall though, very happy with how things are moving. It definitely is going to be sweet when it's done.